After that afternoon at the beach, I thought everything between me and Kellen would change. And it did change. But not in the way I had imagined. Kellen didn't avoid me. He still came to class as usual. Still sat in the same seat. Still turned to ask me about the lecture. As if our conversation at the beach had never happened. But I knew it had. And I also knew he hadn't given up. One Tuesday morning, when I walked into the lecture hall, Kellen was already there. He raised his hand in greeting. Sterling. I sat down. Hey! We opened our laptops. The professor started the lecture. Everything went on as normal. But about 10 minutes later, Kellen slid a small piece of paper toward me. I frowned. Don't worry. We're still friends. I read it, then looked at him. Kellen just shrugged. Like it was no big deal. I didn't know why, but my chest suddenly felt a little lighter. Still, everything inside me was still a mess. The following weeks flew by. Midterms. Assignments. Work. I was so busy I barely had time to think. But every time I thought I was finally okay, Kellen would do something that made me waver again. One night, I was studying in the library when my phone buzzed. A text from Kellen. You still in the library? Yeah. Look out the window. I frowned, but I still turned my head. And I saw him. Kellen was standing in the light rain, holding that familiar black umbrella. I immediately stood up and walked outside. Kellen? What are you doing here? He shrugged. Passing by. I don't believe you. I brought this. He lifted the umbrella. It's raining. I'm inside the library. But you'll have to leave eventually. I stared at him for a few seconds. Then I laughed. You're really annoying. You've said that before. Because it's true. We stood under the library awning. Rain fell steadily across the courtyard. Kellen looked at me. Sterling. Yeah. I keep my promises. What promise? That we're still friends. I nodded. Yeah. But I still like you. My heart stopped. Kellen. Don't worry. He smiled gently. I'm not asking you to answer. I looked at him. Then why say it? Because I don't want to lie. The air grew quiet. Finally I said, you should find someone else. Kellen shook his head. I don't want to. There are 8 billion people in the world. But there's only one Sterling. That sentence left me speechless. I turned back to watch the rain. You're really stubborn. So are you. We were silent for a moment. Then Kellen asked, do you still have the umbrella? I turned to him. The umbrella? The one I gave you that first night. I smiled. I thought you took it back. Not that one. I understood. The very first umbrella. I had kept it in my dorm room ever since that night. Yeah, I said softly. I still have it. Kellen smiled. That's good. Why? Because it's the reason we met. I looked at him, then at the umbrella he was holding. In that moment, I suddenly realized something. No matter how hard I tried to run, Kellen was still there. Patient, calm, waiting. And the scariest part was, part of me didn't want him to leave. But life rarely lets things stay that simple. About 2 weeks later, everything started to fall apart. One afternoon, while Kellen and I were studying in the library, he got a call. He looked at the screen. And for the first time since I'd known him, Kellen's face tightened. Sorry, he said. I have to take this. He stepped outside. I continued working. But about 10 minutes later, when Kellen came back, I knew immediately something was wrong. He didn't say anything, just sat down. I asked quietly, Kellen? He looked at me. His eyes darkened. My family knows. My heart dropped to the floor. Knows what? He answered very softly. About you. When Kellen said those words, my family knows. The air in the library suddenly felt heavy. I put my pen down. Knows what? Kellen looked at me for a few seconds before answering. About us. I swallowed hard. But we're not even. I know. He cut me off gently. But to them, the fact that I care about you is enough. My heart pounded. How did they find out? Kellen exhaled slowly. I'm not sure. He looked down at the table. My family. They're used to controlling everything. I stayed silent. 100 thoughts flooded my mind. The things I had been afraid of from the very beginning. In the end, they had still happened. Kellen, I said quietly, what's going on? He looked up at me. His eyes were calmer than I expected. My father wants to meet you. That sentence froze me in place. Meet me? Yeah. Why? He wants to know who you are. I let out a small, bitter laugh. I think he's already decided that. Kellen didn't deny it. He just said, maybe. I leaned back in my chair. So what are you going to do? Kellen didn't answer right away. He looked out the library window, where raindrops were sliding down the glass. I don't know yet. A moment later he turned back to me. Are you scared? I thought for a few seconds. Then I told the truth. Yes. Kellen nodded. You don't have to meet him. But he wants me to. That doesn't mean you have to. I smiled faintly. Kellen. This is exactly why I said we shouldn't. He frowned. Sterling. Your family has power, money, status. I looked straight into his eyes. And I'm just a student trying to pay rent. Kellen spoke very slowly. You're not just anything. But that's what they'll think. Let them think it. You make it sound so easy. The air between us suddenly grew tense. A few nearby students turned to look. Kellen lowered his voice. Sterling, I'm serious. So am I. He looked at me for a long time, then asked, what if I said I don't care what my family thinks? I answered immediately, but I do. That sentence made Kellen go quiet. Finally, I stood up. I think I should go. Sterling, I have a shift tonight. I packed my things into my backpack. Kellen didn't stop me, but as I turned to leave the table, he said something that made my steps halt. You're always running away. I turned back. Maybe. Why? I looked at him, then said softly, because I know if I stop running, I won't want to leave anymore. Kellen said nothing. He just looked at me. His eyes hurt more than any accusation could. I turned and left the library. Outside it was pouring. The rain made the air freezing. I pulled on my jacket and started walking. But the moment I stepped down from the library stairs, an umbrella opened above my head. I stopped. I didn't even need to turn around to know who it was. Kellen. He stood beside me, holding the familiar black umbrella. It's raining, he said simply. I know. You'll get wet. I'm used to it. Kellen didn't reply. He just kept walking with me. We crossed the campus in silence. Finally I asked, aren't you mad? No. Why? Because I understand. I thought you'd hate me. I can't. I looked at him. Why? Kellen stopped. Under the umbrella, the streetlight lit up his face. Because I love you. Those words fell between us in the rain. Soft, but strong enough to make my heart nearly stop. I had never heard him say that word before. Love. Not like. Not care. Love. I didn't know how to answer. Because in that moment, I knew one thing clearly. If I stayed under this umbrella for one more minute, I wouldn't be able to keep pretending I didn't love Kellen. And right then, I made the hardest decision of my life. I stood under the umbrella with Kellen, listening to him say it. Because I love you. The sound of rain around us seemed to fade away. In that moment, I could hear nothing but my own heartbeat. I knew the truth. I had known for a long time. I loved Kellen. Not liked. Not had a crush. The kind of love that makes you think about someone every single day. Remember their eyes. Remember their voice. Remember every little thing. But because of that, I knew what I had to do. I stepped out from under the umbrella. The rain instantly soaked my shoulders. Kellen. He looked at me. There was something fragile in his eyes. Don't. Sterling. I'm serious. I shook my head. If you say anything more, I won't be able to leave. A long silence stretched between us. The rain grew heavier. Kellen stepped forward. But this time I stepped back. Don't. My voice nearly broke. I'm not strong enough to reject you twice. Kellen stood still. His eyes were pained but still calm. You love me too. It wasn't a question. It was a fact. I closed my eyes for a second. Yeah. One single word. But perhaps the most honest confession I had ever made. The wind blew harder. I opened my eyes and looked at him. But that doesn't change anything. Why? Because your life and my life are not the same. Kellen shook his head. Sterling, you can fight your family now, I said softly. But what about 10 years from now? 20 years? You'll have to choose between them and me. Kellen didn't hesitate. I choose you, I smiled.
A sad smile.
You only say that now.
No.
I don't want to be the reason you lose your family. Sterling, I don't want you to have to fight for me. The rain drenched my hair. I've been fighting my whole life. I looked at him. This time, I want to choose the path that hurts less. Kellen was silent for a very long time. Finally, he asked one question. So this is goodbye? I didn't answer right away, because saying it felt like my chest would shatter. But in the end, I still nodded. Yeah. Kellen looked at me for a long time. Then he held the umbrella out toward me. Take it. I shook my head.
No.
You'll get soaked. It's okay. Sterling, keep it. I looked at the umbrella that had brought us together. I took a deep breath, then turned around, and walked into the rain. I didn't look back. If I looked back, I knew I would run back to him. Graduation day came faster than I expected. 4 years of college passed like a dream that was both beautiful and painful. After that day in the rain, Kellen and I didn't see each other much anymore. We still went to the same school, but we both understood. Distance was necessary. Sometimes we saw each other from afar, in the library, on campus, but neither of us walked closer. On graduation day, the campus was packed with students and families. I stood in the crowd, wearing my cap and gown. My parents had flown in from Kansas. My mom cried when I walked across the stage to receive my diploma. My dad just stood behind her, nodding, but I knew he was proud. After the ceremony, I walked alone around campus. This place had changed my life, and it was also where I had met Kellen. I stopped near the small path leading to the library, and then I saw him. Kellen stood a few meters away. He was also wearing his cap and gown. We looked at each other for years and thousands of memories. Finally, he walked closer. Hey, Sterling. Hey, Kellen. We stood still for a few seconds. Then he asked, How are you?
I'm okay.
Job. I got an offer from a finance company. Kellen smiled. I knew you would. I looked at him. And you? I'm going to work for my family's company. I nodded. Sounds right. A gentle silence fell between us. Then Kellen asked one question. Do you still have the umbrella? My heart skipped. I smiled. I never gave it back. His eyes softened. That's good. We looked at each other a few more seconds. Then a crowd of students walked between us. And the conversation ended just like that. No big goodbye.
No tears.
Just two people who had once loved each other, walking in different directions in life. Many years later, I stood in a large ballroom in New York. It was a finance industry event. After years of nonstop work, I finally had a solid position. My life was stable, successful, but sometimes there was a small empty space in my heart, a space named Kellen. I was standing near the bar when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Sterling. My heart pounded. I turned around, and there he was, Kellen. He looked more mature, more composed, but those blue eyes were exactly the same as before. We looked at each other for a few seconds, as if time had just rewound. Finally, he smiled softly. It's been a while. Yeah. We stood facing each other. All those years apart suddenly felt small. Kellen looked at me for a moment, then asked, The umbrella? Do you still have it? I laughed. You still remember? Yeah. I looked straight into his eyes. I never gave it back. A slow smile appeared on Kellen's lips. Outside the ballroom, it started to rain. He glanced out the glass doors, then turned back to me. Sterling. Yeah. Want to take a walk? I looked at the rain outside. An old memory returned. A wet street. A black umbrella. 2 strangers. I nodded gently. Sure. We stepped out of the ballroom. Rain fell lightly on the New York street. Kellen opened the umbrella he was holding. And this time, we stood under the same umbrella. No distance. No fear. No family or past tearing us apart. Just 2 men who had grown up after many years. Kellen looked at me. I still haven't given up. I smiled. I know. He tilted his head. So this time, what's your answer? I looked at the rain falling around us, then into his eyes. This time, I stepped closer. I'm not running anymore. Kellen smiled. And for the first time in many years, I felt my heart return to where it belonged. The rain kept falling. But this time, no one left.